Okay. Okay, so this is going to be a very informal walkthrough of how my bee breeding system works. This system works in, I believe, HV, or whenever you unlock the Open Computers computers, and whenever you can craft those. But you're going to have to probably figure out how to implement this in your own world, unless you have access to everything that I have access to in this thing. The reason I'm making this video is I find this super useful for creating bees, because it saves me a ton of time breeding bees that I really don't feel like breeding myself. So being able to put them through this system and it automatically being bred is very convenient, and I think other people would benefit from this too. To create a new bee, you need 2 different species of bee that combine. So it'll be a queen or princess and drone pair that have that are able to breed into a new species. So, for example, supernatural and ethereal, with oak leaves as a foundation, but not all bees have this requirement. It will make a windy queen. So this system over here, it uses, this system here is designed to mutate a mass quantity of bees that'll have randomly distributed traits for use later in the system. So the way this system works is you place so for example, I'm trying to breed Windy Princess here, and it requires supernatural and ethereal. So in my setup, I place the supernatural bees, and then they filter into these A.I.piaries, and then ethereal, which filter into these A.I.piaries. And you also need princesses to be placed in here. You can put really any type as long as they're pristine and they don't have any temperature requirements that are different than the biome that the system's operating in. One of the big drawbacks of this system is that it doesn't have any temperature controls. So if there's any bees that have say they need a damp, they have a damp requirement. So for example, lead bees. I was having this problem earlier where lead bees have warm and damp temperature requirements. They cannot be bred in this system because the second you have a lead queen, it'll clog up the apiaries here, and it will no longer. That apiary will no longer work. So the princesses, they're fed from these chests. Right now I don't have any in there because I put supernatural drones in for just to remind myself later. But then it bred with stuff, so now all the princesses are down here. And so all the princesses are down there. But once I turn the system on, that will be placed into these apiaries, and then they'll be shuffled between the two, occasionally creating windy princesses, which will be sent from the outputs of these bees outputs of these apiaries into down to this chest, and then they will get scanned, This is important for the computer because it will be able to read the traits of the bee. So all the bees that are going through this system get scanned, including the princesses of like later, except these. Like everything in here doesn't get scanned because they're all, we know what these are already. It's not. It doesn't matter. And then for these, you don't need to scan them to see the species on the name. So those are simple. And I'm also using A.I.piary pipes, so that helps to like sort out in any edge cases where you have like a bee that has weird traits or something that you need to get rid of. So once it gets scanned, it gets sent to this chest where you can see I've been running stuff. So this chest has a ton of random ass bees. This chest has a bunch of bees. And basically once the code runs, I guess I could run the code now. There wouldn't be really any problem with it. By the way, this thing just like turns the main loop off. So you see like all the princesses and stuff, they get put back into their things. And these drones are getting filtered. But none of them were of the right type, so they all go into into that chest, which is just a dumb chest, really. Any windy drones that come up here, or any bees that have the trait windy, so an active trait or inactive trait of windy. So for example, this princess has active and inactive of diligent. So if one of those traits were windy, then it would come into this chest and be picked up by this transposer. I made a evaluation function, and it looks through this chest and tries to pick out the best bee in this chest to be bred with, and it'll take that bee and then the princess in this chest and then send it through here to the apiary where it'll breed, and then it'll do that over and over again. So the princess will come back, it'll get over here, and it'll pick another queen until eventually it'll converge on a decent bee, depending on what you put in here. So it's going to have the best traits of, or a good approximation of the best traits that came from these apiaries. Sometimes it'll converge to suboptimal bees very often, but it will always end up with a pair of pure bees that can be bred with each other, and they will never change their traits. So after I'm done with these, I take them and put them in a apiary, and they just stack, and I can use these bees again later. So part of this too is that with this alveary, I have another transposer here that takes these oblivion frames and then places them in the frame housing, and then kills the bees quicker for breeding. and then repairs it and then puts it back up here. Sorry, I just had a thought that I could probably do this over here too. The thing about the system is I've gone through multiple iterations of this. So before I had a 2-tier system, or I guess 3-tier system if you count the refining section. This is I call this the refining section. I think it's called best gene selector in my code. But I had a 2-tiered system where I turned the princess into a, for example, I turned it into ethereal, and then I sent it over here, and then I tried to turn it back into a supernatural, and then I sent it all the way back over there. Okay, I'll explain it this way then. I would get a pure princess of ethereal over here, and then I would send it over here once, where it would be bred with a supernatural, and then after that it would get sent back to here until it was pure again. And then I found out that was actually just really inefficient because it doesn't need to be pure to mutate, and mutations are bidirectional. So like you can use a in this visual, it shows the supernatural princess as it shows a supernatural princess and a ethereal drone breeding the windy queen, but it's true the other way too. So an ethereal princess with a supernatural drone will also produce windy at the same rates, and it is no different. So I use that to simplify my system, and then also make my code a little easier. To be more specific about what this system can and can't do. So this system's very good at breeding bees new bees that have normal requirements, or just requirements of the system, or requirements of bees that the system is in. As long as the bees have those same requirements, it can do that without intervention. I've done that like multiple times. A lot of this stuff is new, by the way. This isn't new really, but it helps you get through like a lot of the. Can help you get through a lot of the tree. Like I think a lot of these bees can be done with this system. I just haven't gotten around to it because I've been playing very often recently. It's not great at the ore bees because the ore bees kind of all have temperature requirements, so you kind of have to find a different way to do that. So in the future, I would like to have the system search for new bees that it can create using the bees that I've already done, that's possible with the system as it is, and just create those bees without anybody having to do any intervention. That would probably be possible. This would be possible with the system, the way it's designed, as is. With some changes to how the A.I.piaries over here work. You'd need to create a new system, like a database for what bees you have currently. So maybe like an applied energistics system that has all your bees, so that they can just be queried from your database. I also, in the future, I want to do. I'd like to have like a nicer way to do this, like maybe have instead of a line of A.I.piaries, just have a A.I.piary or an industrial A.I.piary that can do this process a little quicker. Using stimulants or some other thing. Also, side note about the about the frames. The aviary, it takes 5 durability. Oh, also, see, we already have a windy queen. Being, yeah, already have a windy queen being produced. So the durability of these oblivion frames is 50, which normally means that you could use all 49 of the durability before it breaks, and then or for all 49 of the durability until you would need to repair it, or else it would break. That doesn't work in aviaries. So in my code, there's a condition where it says if it's less than 5, don't change that unless you know what you're doing. Because it made me lose like a lot of oblivion frames because I was like, what's going on? So yeah, you can have this plug into Thalamic Restorer, and it'll repair the frames, and you can just put it back and have a nice loop. Makes it very simple. So I want to talk more about actually how you would construct this. So of course you just have the line of A.I.piaries with Ender IO pipes that input and output on different channels. Same with this. Just keep track of the channels. You just want to have the stuff going on this side, staying on this side, and the exports, they all can, I guess the exports could all be on one channel. No, they actually can't. Okay, it's important for the exports to be on different channels, where they get piped into. So natively, A.I.piary's pipes do not connect to Ender IO pipes, so you need a item pipe, or you can find probably some other system that works too. Just whatever works with A.I.piary's pipes. I use this for the filtering. So the princesses go to this side. Combs, so all the items, they just go in this chest. Drones will go down here where they get sent to the scanner. This iron pipe is filtering and making sure it's all going down. Sorry, this is very compact, by the way. It looks nice, I feel like, but it's kind of hard to read, so apologies for that. So from this pipe comes the princesses in the red, and they get filtered into purebred bees and princesses. So I have this distinguishing or I distinguish these because I think it just simplifies the transposer's operations, because if a bee is not purebred, it's most likely ethereal. So in this example, it'd be ethereal and ethereal and supernatural. It's probably a hybrid between those two. So you can just send it back and get another use out of it before you send it to the other side. But in some other cases, it just wouldn't be it would be maybe like or some other example is it could be like a rocky and supernatural, in which you would want to send it back to get rid of that rocky trait, or the rocky species. So here's another transposer. This transposer tests the species of the bee. So this is why it's important to correctly specify the arguments on the computer. In the computer, the right side is I believe the third argument, and the left side's the second argument. So supernatural and so if you're breeding a windy bee, you would write A.I.piary windy, supernatural, ethereal, and then the effect that you want on the bee, which by default is none. So you can leave it out unless you want some other trait. I forgot what I was. I forgot what I was rambling about, but yeah. Okay, so this transposer. So the queens come over here. Let me check. And we are back. Okay. So this transposer, this is the mutator A.I.piary's transposer. Alright, so the mutator transposer is this one. This transposer takes the bees from, like the princesses specifically, from this. Let me explain this first. So, okay, so I just explained that side, I just explained this side of the A.I.piary's pipes. This gets sent on the brown line, which is back into these. But on this side, these two get sent back into the back into the back into the apiaries. So over here, this pipe is very similar to the other pipe, just like the only difference is that they're mirrored. So green gets in here. On the other side, I believe it's yellow. Yeah, yellow over here. White. That's closed. Yellow is drones. Drones get sent in. The other side, that was green. Red is the princesses, which is the complicated part. So the princesses, they get sent up for white. That's my Discord, by the way, sorry. Princesses that are not pure, they get sent up, and they get sent back into their respective system. Yellow, so this chest actually doesn't get sent anything. Same with the other side. It's just a little confusing, because it's all very compact. And you can't disable like visual connections, even if they're not being used. So this red pipe goes into this chest, and this chest basically decides, or this transposer basically decides which side of the mutator apiary these bees go to. So if they're purebred, and they are of the, if they are pure and of the type that their side is on, they get sent to the other side, and they get bred with the other side's bees, which mutates them into the desired type. Which is, yeah, so the way it does that is by interfacing with these two chests, which send them back to their respective sides. I'm just going to trust that you can understand if you understand the code, that you can see what is going to what. All right. So I think that adequately explained the mutator segment. So the scanner here, this is pretty basic. I say that and I'm confused looking at it. Okay, so for the scanner, really all you need is, I have one scanner system. You could have multiple, if you think it simplifies debugging any weird issues you have, or it is simpler to set up. But how this works is, the bees get scanned, and then the bees that come from this chest, which are green. Actually, every chest actually are green, and it gets filtered out at the end by this pipe, which I don't think. Oh no, that's a golden pipe. So it gets filtered out by this. So the princesses and drones, they get sent to their different areas. Drones getting sent to this transposer, which I showed earlier, and the queen's getting sent back to this chest, which is where the queen sits when it's ready to be bred with a bee. So this transposer, more specifically, what it does is it looks at every bee in the chest and then decides which ones have the desired type, and then it breeds, or it doesn't breed them. It checks if they have the desired type, and then it moves them into either this filing cabinet, which is a dump chest, or this chest, which all of these bees are windy, or some hybrid of windy. Then this transposer is it uses the best gene selector method. So it scores the bees, which I conveniently score, or I send the score to the console so you can see the progress of your bee, and finds the best bee and combines it with the princess, and then it sends it through here. When it chooses a bee, it tells you the score, and then it prints the console and goes in the aviary, and then gets instantly killed by the frames. And then the bees get sent in the black, and items sent up. So these bees also get sent back to this chest. Or sorry, the drones get sent back to this chest, and the princess gets sent back here. So you notice by the time I've, done all of this, it's only been maybe half an hour since I hit enter on the console, and it's already windy. Starting with no windy drones. So it sends all the drones that came out of this that were windy, it sends all the drones that came out of this that were windy back into this chest. So that's why there's the convergence on the drones genes, is because usually the drones that come out of this are also the best drones. But sometimes that's not the case. So very early on, sometimes stuff that'll come out of here has just got really good genes, and then it'll get bred with that instead. And then eventually it'll come out of this, on this, and there'll be a princess and a drone in this slot. And by the time I'm done recording this, it'll probably be there. It's a little annoying that it's raining right now, but I don't have the technology to turn that off. Oh. There we go. It's already finished. So, I think, actually, this was part of my quest, was to create a windy drone. Which, for some reason, so this is a pure windy drone, or princess, and pure windy drone. And they have the same exact traits if you look in here. Same traits here. If I go in here, I don't know why. Let me try detecting. There might be a bug. Let me relog. And we're back. So the Windy quest completed. Now I'm probably just going to take these drones and put them in one of my setups that just breeds infinitely until they cease to exist when this world gets deleted eventually. What else shall I talk about? Okay, so now I think I'm going to explain the code. Just another thing about this code. I use a lever to control the main loop of this code. If you want to use this in your world, you probably have to edit the code. But it's not necessary. It's just very helpful for debugging, and that's why I left it on. So if I go ahead and edit the code, there's a lot of code. So the first thing you have to do in your world is define, if you've recreated my system exactly, these transposer addresses will be different on your world than they are in my world. So the mutator address, which is the mutator transposer, this should be the mutator or the transposer that is right here, and that controls the princesses that are coming out of the mutator. The drone filter, it's this address. So that is this. This controls the bees that are coming in. Also, let me get rid of these. The bees that are coming in here that either go through here or get dumped. The BGS is the best gene selector. So that's what I was talking about with the algorithm earlier that scores the bees. So that's this transposer. And this just scores the bees and puts them into the breeding chamber. And then the frame address. So there's 4 transposers. I don't think you need a tier 3 component for that, but I do have tier 3 components because I think when I was coding this, it was kind of annoying to code on the terrible hardware, because there's some methods you just can't run that are helpful for testing, but you don't really need them. So, like I could have done this whole code on a tier 1. It's just way nicer to have a nice green monitor with tiny text and a big screen. So this is the frame transposer. This controls the frames. It's giving me anxiety having these all like run here, like not touching it, because I made a change to that system recently. That's probably not in my GitHub right now. Okay, so these are required to run, or I don't think the sides thing are required, but these are important for running. This is the argument list. Use proxy to get the transposer for the address. So you could just say like transposer or something, but it's not like specified which transposer you'll get if you say transposer. So you need to manually type in these. There might be a different way to do this, but this is the way I did it, and I think it's pretty. I don't know. It's pretty. It's annoying to type in. So if there's another way, it'd be nice to know. Yeah. So the target type is the first argument. The first queen type is the left, or so. Looking at it from this way, the left queen type, which is the same as the left drone type, So for this example, supernatural, that would be this argument. And then the second would be ethereal. The effect is none as its default. Otherwise, you can specify it. And then, so here's the function that scores the bees. So that it grabs the active traits and inactive traits of the bee, and it scores them using a function called side score, which is it's like another method that just to make it more simple, so I don't have to write a giant function that does both sides at once, because there's not much benefit to, or at least I don't think there's much benefit to having it all in one method. You can just any combinations you can just do in a higher level function. Sorry, I keep saying method, but I should be saying function. If the names of both species are the same, or the same as the target type, I score it as an extra 200 points. I have to think why this was. Oh, I see. Okay. So the reason I'm scoring, actually, this is probably a redundant piece of code because these all would satisfy this condition. But if for some reason I didn't, then this would add 200 points for it being the right type, or having the right type. Also, it gets 5 points for having the same traits on both sides. This helps to converge, so it's not just randomly looking at bees that are. It might just select bees that are. Honestly, this could probably be also done without too, but it's. I feel like it would help it converge, so I added it. So the side score function, this is the evaluation function for the bees. This is where like all the weights are for. This is where all the weights are for the bees traits. So, it having tolerant flyer, you get 3 points for it. Nocturnal is 13. Cave dwelling 1. If the effect is the desired effect that you specify in the argument, then it gets 5 points. This is also helpful if you have like a very annoying bee effect. It'll get rid of this effect, unless you have something like the node growth trait. I forget what it's called. The rejuvenating bees have. All the humidity, you have to manually do the humidity tolerance and temperature tolerance. There's no because they're strings. There might be like an easier way to do this, but there's only 5 of them, so. There's also the up ones and down twos and whatever stuff like that. I don't care to specify those because they're only useful sometimes. So this is a function that just looks and sees if the traits are equal on both sides. This is just useful. Up above for adding like 5 points. And it also, there's a target type checker too. That's useful for the B filter. So this is the loop. This is what controls the redstone lever. So if you don't want it, you just say while 1, or actually don't say while 1. Do say while 1 actually. So what this does is each part does different things. It should be if you watch the rest of this explanation, this should be it should be fairly clear what's happening in the code. Each of these, it runs each of the transposers in sequence. So this is the mutator A.I.piary code. This is the drone filter code. gene selection, frame manipulation. The frame manipulation happens every time a queen is selected. So this is to make sure that every time you're running through, or you run a pair through the A.I.piary, or not the A.I.piary, the A.I.piary, it has health and that's enough to support it. So the best V selection, this is all in the gene selection section, I guess. What it does is, okay, so the best V selection is it looks through, this is basically a max, it searches for the max score in the chest and picks that B out and prints the score, and then also takes the princess out from the chest and then places it into the chest that gets sent to the A.I.piary. Yeah, so that's what the code does. I could go in deeper to what every line does, but I think if you care enough, you might be better off looking and seeing for yourself. Actually, I might have changed my mind. Okay. I might just be a little lazy. So these transfer item methods these transfer item methods, they actually run, this is the side of where it's taking from, this is the side it's placing into, and this is how many it's doing. So for the queen one, it places into a certain side, or it's taking from some side's chest. This transposer's fourth side, which if you go look at the API for computer craft, it corresponds to some specific side, or like cardinal direction, but that'll change depending on your specific orientation, unless you make your system the exact same orientation as mine, and in that case it'd be probably pretty simple. Actually, for anybody's curious, I'm facing north, so I think this is just looping through and doing the same thing as up here, but for the other side of the mutator, and moving it to whatever side it needs to be on. So the filter is going through all the inventory slots of the A.I.piary's chest and filtering out whatever ones that are not useful. It does this, using a loop, if statements. Also, it uses transfer items. It transfers the whole stack, just so you don't need to do any duplicates. What else? Yeah. So the frame. I don't know how much I'm editing this video. Earlier, I was talking about the frame. Okay. So if the frame has less than 5 health, it needs to get transferred because the A.I.piary uses 5 durability per. I lost a lot of frames that way, so you should keep in mind. B selection. Actually, my throat's hurting now, so I'm actually gonna. I hope nobody was like, "Oh no, you stopped explaining the one section I need to know about." Hopefully everything's clear. If you're using my code, I actually really appreciate it. Let me know if you have any questions, if it's not clear or anything. I hope this is helpful to somebody else, because I had a fun time working on it. Also learning about like the open computers, libraries, and stuff like that. So I'll probably end it there. Thanks for watching.